Righty. We are recording. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to the Avanti Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Dave Mammano, your host, and we're here to help entrepreneurial achievers and business owners and leaders move forward so that they can reach their potential. I do this by interviewing the nation's best business movers and shakers. Today I have on the show a great guy, Bob Burg. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dave. Great to be with you.
So glad to have you on the show. I met you months ago at a conference in Atlanta called Outbound. There are a lot of conferences that these days that help organizations get inbound leads, right, through CRMs and digital marketing and social media marketing. And that's great. We all love inbound leads that are qualified. But what's been lost maybe the past decade is good old-fashioned outbound, right? A lot of articles out there. Cold calling is dead, blah, blah, blah. And traditional sales efforts are dead. And I know as a salesperson at heart that cannot be further from the truth. And, you know, do they both play a role, inbound and outbound? In my opinion, 100%. And that's what this conference was about, was how to, in today's world, really go about doing outbound marketing, outbound sales in a way that is I'll say relevant to today's environment, relevant to today's ecosystem, right? The sales techniques we learned in the 80s, they're probably not going to work anymore, right? As far as some of the questioning techniques that we had, people are kind of, they caught on to that stuff. But are there different ways that we could do effective outbound marketing? Absolutely. So that's what we're going to talk about today, Bob. First, I want to read your bio so everybody gets to know you a little bit more. If they haven't heard of you, and if they haven't heard of you, I'm guessing they've heard of your book because it's a very popular bestseller book, selling almost 1 million copies, which is incredible. So Bob Burg is a sought-after speaker at company leadership and sales conferences, sharing the platform with everyone from today's business leaders and broadcast personalities to even a former U.S. president. Bob is the author of a number of books on sales, marketing, and influence with a total book sales of well over 1 million. His book, The Go-Giver, co-authored with John David Mann, itself has sold over 150,000 copies and has been translated into 28 languages. His and John's newest parable in the Go-Giver series is The Go-Giver Influencer. Bob is an advocate, supporter, and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also an unapologetic animal fanatic and is a past member of the board of directors of Furry Friends Adoption Clinic and Ranch in his hometown of Jupiter, Florida. Bob, great bio. Again, welcome to the show. Happy to have you on.
Thank you, and it's just so great to be with you. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. Great bio. You know, I'm as I read your advocate of the free enterprise system, I'm reminded of one of the best-selling books of all time, Atlas Shrugged. Right at the end of the day, I believe I'll say one of the kind of, philosophies of that book is when it's done right, you are getting paid for the value that you are bringing to the world, right? And it's equal. That's why, not to diminish the guy at McDonald's, at the cash register, I'm sure most often he's a great guy, but we don't really place a lot of value on the cash register position at McDonald's. Therefore, they make minimum wage, right? Because kind of anybody could do that. Now, conversely, someone who is able to go into a company and triple the sales in 2 years, well, wow, there is some value there, and we're going to pay for that value, right? Et cetera. So that seems to be the crux of what's important to you. One of the things that's important.
Here's the interesting thing, and I think you bring up a good point. That person who starts out at McDonald's has a great opportunity, though, because if he can focus on, and she can focus on providing immense value to everyone involved, their team members, their boss, the customers, the ultimate boss. If they can provide value, they are going to move up, and they're going to learn the skills, and they're going to, whether they're noticed directly by someone who hires them or whether they just get into the habit of doing the right things and help them create value for the marketplace, they don't have to stay at McDonald's. They can move up, and as they continue to increase the value they're providing in different positions and increase the number of people they're providing that value to, they're going to earn more. This is why we say that money is simply an echo of value, right? It's the thunder that values lightning, and your income is determined by how many people you serve, directly or indirectly, as well as how well you serve them.
That is, if I tweeted a lot, that'd be a tweet right there. Bob Burg, money is the echo of value. That I like that. Is that yours? I like that a lot.
Yeah, John and I had that in one of the books in the Go-Giver series.
Yeah, I really like that a lot. It's very true. And, I just saw one of these inspirational videos on Facebook, and it was about how the guy, he was running through an airport. He was late. His flight was late. He was going to possibly miss his flight with the family. And this woman that was serving the coffee just cared so much about the experience that she totally reframed his mood and his attitude. And he ended up doing a little story about it. And that's your point.
That was Ryan, and I'm just trying to think of his last name, and I apologize. I can't remember. He's a great speaker. I have not had the pleasure of meeting him, but everyone from audiences where I've come in that's had him speak just gets raves. And I thought that video he put together was fantastic. And I thought the woman who, with the coffee, she was the ultimate embodiment of what we would call a go-giver. She made the experience spectacular.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. And so, quote unquote, she's just a barista, but with that type of care and attitude and passion, she may become the manager of that store. She may become a territory manager. She may open up her own restaurant someday, right? And but it all starts with that love coming from the heart, wanting to be, as you would say, a go-giver, right? So Bob, for those that haven't read the book or don't know about the series yet, do me a favor and tell the Avanti family, what is a go-giver?
So a go-giver is simply someone who has learned, or maybe has always intuitively understood, that shifting your focus, and this is really the key, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others. Understanding that doing this is not only a nice way, a pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well.
So at the end of the day, it has a quote unquote selfish benefit. You're making profit from it, but that's not why people do it, right? I mean, it's most people that are doing it, they're doing it from the heart. They're authentic about it. It's who they are.
And that's one of the laws, the law of authenticity. You've got to do it from an authentic base of truly wanting to serve others.
Is this innate, or can it be a learned behavior?
Oh, well, excuse me. Yeah, indeed, it can be learned. I think that like many things, many talents, many abilities, we may have a natural inclination to be a certain way, or we might be brought up a certain way with that as a high value. I certainly was. I saw my parents, they were to me, the embodiment of doing that very thing. But you can learn it if not. And you can be brought up that way, or you can have an aptitude toward it. But if you get kind of taken off in a different direction and you lose that kind of, well, then you're not going to do it. So I think it's like anything else. But absolutely, positively, yes, you can learn to have that shift in focus and learn how to really make that a part of your authentic being.
Yeah. And it's just who you are naturally too. So this is why you're able to write about this, because you can just look inside of yourself. And I'm sure that helps you as you're, writing these books. Maybe you feel, God in your fingertips as you type away and write this book, because it's just coming from your own authentic place.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was very lucky to, and so was John, my co-author, and that we both, and we compared notes about this, both had great parents, have great parents who instilled these kind of values in us, and got to see, that happening. Which isn't to say over time, at times I got off the path, but fortunately I came back to it, and it was something where I saw it was the way I wanted to live my life and conduct business. And I certainly don't think that, and John and I have both often said, that none of the laws in this story, because the Go-Giver series is a series of parables, other than one of the books that most of them are parables. none of the laws that we talk about are original with us, right? That none of these are new. They all date back for, I'm sure, since time immemorial, since they were people selling in the bazaars of and the traveling merchants of Babylon, back in the days of Classon's The Richest Man in Babylon parable. Yeah. I'm sure the people who were successful and people who've been successful in sales and leadership, entrepreneurship, this is simply how they've run their lives and conducted their businesses. Now, some did it intuitively. They didn't have a name for it necessarily or know that's what they were doing, but it's what they were doing. But hopefully what we've done is maybe put a name to it in a way so that people who aren't yet familiar with that are able to then pick up on it and utilize that in their own lives.
Yeah, fantastic. So, Bob, thank you for that. So from the conference, you were on the stage, you were obviously very impressive, and that's why I reached out to you to be on a podcast. I only get the best, Bob. So congratulations. But also, for those that follow my podcast weekly, recently I've had Andrea Waltz. She was a speaker at the conference as well. Go for No.
That book, I got to tell you that, and I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
But that book was her book, Go for No, that she wrote with her husband, Richard. They did such a magnificent job with that. And I've often said, I wish I had that book when I first started in my sales career, because their premise, it's not that no has to be a great thing, but it's part of life. And when they say, yes is the destination, but no is how you get there. And I think so often people who start as an entrepreneur, and I know you've got a lot of young entrepreneurs, up and coming entrepreneurs, people who are just about to bust through, and some who are just starting out. And I think what knocks a lot of potentially very, very successful people out of business is not that they get no's. It's that they think they're the only ones getting all these no's. Mm-hmm. Because they see people who've gotten to where they want to be. Of course, they're looking at other people's highlight reels, right? Or they're seeing people walking across stages and getting all these awards or being up, and they think, oh, well, that person, they didn't have to, people just grabbed on to whatever they were selling, and not at all. They went through, they filled that proverbial 5-gallon barrel of no's in order to get that quart of yeses, but that quart of yeses is enough to set you free and have you with a successful, fun, really great business. And I think what Richard and Andrea's book did is it kind of set that premise, if you will. And it said, you know what? You're going to get no's. Reframe it. Handle it. Doesn't mean you have to like it, but handle it a little bit differently and take it for what it is, and then move ahead. And I just thought that was a wonderful lesson.
Yeah, it's a good twist, right? It's a good reframe, because it's, people are like, go for no. What are you talking about? But then, she showed some research that the average, I think 60, I forgot the exact stats, but it was like, I think it was around 60% of all salespeople quit after one no. But meanwhile, 90% of all people who buy something will say no 5 times before they buy, right? So it's a great case as to, Andrea was saying, when you go to bed, mark down how many no's did you hear that day, and the more the better, because the more no's you're getting, the closer you're getting to the yeses, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, and then we had Anthony Anarino, who was fantastic as well.
Yes,
and
fantastic. Yeah,
a lot of great stuff. And then Victor Antonio, who I mentioned him on the podcast, and thank God he liked my description. I was like, Victor, with all due respect, you are like a comedian, an entertainer, and a great deliverer of sales content, all wrapped into one. And he was like, perfect. That's what I'm going for. I'm like, good, because that's what I got.
Absolutely.
I mean, the energy, he's up, he's down, he's funny, he's serious, he's old school, writing on the paper behind him, and it all worked for him, right? And then you were fantastic. Your wisdom is fantastic, and I could tell that you love what you do, and you've been honing it over the years with all the books and all the content you've been producing. Now, I would say that you are definitely a thought leader in your space, right? You've been doing this for a long time, and we're gonna give you the crown of like thought leader in your space, right? So, congratulations. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that are trying to be thought leaders today, right? They're and it's different today because it's a little bit easier to try to be a thought leader because you could put videos out on YouTube and Facebook, et cetera, every day, and you get 100 people liking your stuff. Well, you're a thought leader to those 100 people, right? But I would love to hear the story, the entrepreneurial journey for you. What were you doing before, and then how did it all start? To one day you say, you know what, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to start doing some speaking, and then how it kind of the flywheel got turning to where you are today.
Well, I began as a broadcaster, first in radio and then television. I was actually the late night news guy for a very, very small ABC affiliate in the Midwestern United States.
Mm-hmm.
I was not very good at it, and it wasn't long. It wasn't long before I graduated into sales. Now, the problem, Dave, was that I had no sales background. I didn't know anything about sales. I just, in the training where I was working was, we'll say, negligible at best. And so I was out on my own, really just knocking on doors and making calls, going in thinking that sales was about just talking and talking and talking about your product. I mean, everything wrong that a salesperson could do.
And Bob, when was this? How long ago was this?
Oh, this was almost 40 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're just starting out. You're green. You're fresh. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So one day I'm in a bookstore, and I'm not sure what exactly I was looking for, but I came across a couple books on sales. Now, again, understand, I didn't even realize there was such a thing as a book on sales or about sales. I didn't know sales teaching was a thing. So it immediately inspired me. One book was by Zig Ziglar. One book was by Tom Hopkins. And the name of the book, the title of Tom's book, was How to Master the Art of Sales. I said, what? Master the art of sales? I mean, there's a way to actually do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I picked up those two books, and as I often say, I never read them. I devoured them.
Wow. Yeah.
And what I do is I'd come home after work, and from then until about 1, 2 in the morning, I'd be studying and rehearsing and taking notes and highlighting and underlining, Within a few weeks, my sales improved dramatically. And it was really just having a methodology, having a way to do a thing. And that's so very important. To this day, I personally define, and I'm not saying this is the right definition, I'm just saying it's my definition. I define a system as simply the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you'll get the desired result of B, then all you need to do is A, and continue to do A, and continue to do A, and you'll eventually get the desired results of B. And so that's what I did. I followed a system, and it was the first time I realized that, you don't have to know yourself. You can learn from others and duplicate what they did. Now, be careful who you duplicate, of course, because it needs to be congruent with your value system and even with, to a certain point, your style, though you can take a lot of principles and match them to your style. But I love Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar, and, they were heroes of mine. So, they became heroes of mine. And so I eventually worked my way up to sales manager of a company and started teaching sales to others. And what did they used to say on the Seinfeld show? Yada, yada, yada. Here we are today. But as far as the first book goes, once I was speaking for a couple of years, I was at a National Speakers Association talking to a few people. And they said, Burg, you really need to write a book. It will help position you better. You'll be able to market yourself easier. You'll be able to get higher fees, etc. So I thought that was a good idea. So I wrote my first book called Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales, which was a how-to book for salespeople and entrepreneurs to be able to create the relationships that would result in the know, like, and trust relationships that would lead to sales and referrals. Through the years, I kind of had the idea that I'd love to put the premise of that in a parable form, because I'd always enjoyed reading parables.
Sure.
And so that's when I got together with John David Mann, who was the editor-in-chief of a magazine I used to write for, and asked if he would be the lead writer and storyteller because I'm a how-to author. I'm step 1, step 2, step 3. He's a brilliant writer,
Hmm.
and boy, and a great entrepreneur. But I knew he could bring to this something I couldn't, and so we collaborated on that. And that's when when the Go Giver came out.
Very cool. And then, so when did that start to take off? Like when you joined National Speakers Association, writing the book, because that was the genesis of you becoming what you're doing today for a living, right?
Yeah. Now the Endless Referrals was a few years after I joined National Speakers Association. That was in the early 90s. And the Go Giver first came out at the end of, I think it was December 27, 2007. So for all intents and purposes, it hit the bookshelves in 2008.
Yeah.
So it's been about 11 years now. And so, yeah, I mean, that kind of accelerated the speaking business even more, because even with my Endless Referrals book, which was a big seller, as were some of the other ones I wrote after that, and some of them were losers too, that didn't sell very well at all, but the ones that did sold well, I still utilize them as outgoing positioning tools. The Go Giver sort of changed all that, because at that point, and the book really took off fast, and it took off well. The calls started to come in from companies who were using the book in their organization, and then just said, "Can you come in and speak?"
Yeah. So, no, thank you for that. Like I said, a lot of Avanti members, family here, we have chapters, we have members, and a lot of them are, really working on that path of becoming one of the thought leaders in their field, right? And without obviously getting specific, I'm always asking thought leaders like yourself, like where does the revenue come from? I know it's a pie, right? So I'm going to guess parts speaking, part book sales. Do you do consulting? Like how does a thought leader? How do most thought leaders, from what you see in NSA, et cetera, derive the revenue for their company?
Well, I think for many, it is speaking makes up the majority of it. They probably also do coaching if that's what they choose to do, and some do consulting. The book revenue generally, unless you have a really big selling book, you're not going to make a lot of money on the book itself. The book is going to be almost a loss leader in a sense.
It's a marketing tool, right?
It is. It's a marketing tool. I call it a positioning tool. That's how I used Endless Referrals. And so I think it depends with different people how they want to have that additional income coming in. Eventually, some of them might do, might put on events or do different things. With us, we have a few different streams. We do have the book, and with the Go Giver book, it's been a very successful book, so that is actually an income stream as well. But then there's the speaking, which until a few years ago was the highest percentage of my revenue. At 61 years old, I'm not really looking to speak as that's an understatement. I don't take any more than 20 engagements outside of Florida a year anymore.
Wow. Okay.
I never really liked the travel part of speaking, but I always did it because that's what you do. As you get older, you're maybe sometimes less willing to do the parts that you really don't want to do.
Well, it's tough. It's tough, right? Flight delays, blah blah blah, right? I mean, it's
and I just like being home. But yeah, there's still the speaking aspect. My business partner, Kathy Tajanel, and she's just a brilliant business person. And she is really, we've created a number of other channels or streams, if you will. We have the Certified Go Giver Speaker Program, where people license our materials, the quote unquote intellectual properties I've developed over the last 30 years or so. And we also have a Go Giver Entrepreneurs Academy, which we hold a few times a year. We limit it to 10 people, so it goes very, we get very deep into it. But that's one. And then we have a new online video course that just came out last month, and that is called Endless Referrals: The Go Giver Way. So we're building these different streams that basically I should be off the road totally. Within a couple of years, I would say, but I'll keep decreasing it as it goes along. But yeah, I think depending upon what you want to do, you'll have different income streams. Sure.
Yeah. You know Jack Daly by chance?
I know of him. Have heard great things about Jack.
Yeah, Jack. And like you said, that everybody will do their own thing. So Jack is, I think he just turned 70, 71, and he wants to do more speaking gigs, right? I mean, this guy is done all over the place. So to your point, it's just whatever fills your heart with. If you want to be on the road more, they're the opportunities. You want to write more books, and then you've got some great programs going on. Love the online programs, right? Because you could do that any place, right? You could be in Italy on vacation, and you still could run some of those online programs. You could be anywhere. That's the beauty of it. With so much content out there, right? And let's assume that all your content is 10 out of 10, like just world-class content, because I know that's what you do, Bob. But you can also say, you're like, I believe you, right? But that's also say that, there's another, 300 guys out there like you, and women putting out really great content too, right? Like Anthony Iannarino is, and Victor Antonio is, right? And Andrea Waltz is, right? So how do you stand out and get enough volume to make that work with all the other people out there putting out such great content as well? Is there, or do you say, okay, if we get 200 people subscribing to our online course a year, then we're doing well, and so it's doable, right? I mean, how does that whole thing work, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I think the metrics you just discussed in terms of saying, what do we need to be happy with what we're doing? I mean, when you think of it, it's all about pursuing happiness as you understand happiness, and different people have different things they need to attain, have, do, be, whatever, in order to feel good that they're operating congruently with their values. But as far as cutting through all the noise that's out there, the fact is there's a lot of good noise out there, because there's a lot of talented people, as you mentioned, there's so many. But I think it really comes down to, writing and videoing, whatever it is, great content, but that's just part of it. Because again, there's a lot out there. I think it's making sure that you're marketing yourself correctly. I think it's creating relationships with people. I think it's when you have a reader, it's responding to them when they respond to you. I think it's you're on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, and somebody mentions something and says something, you get back and you answer, and you create one-on-one relationships. Don't worry about having 100,000 people. Worry about doing it right with one person, or we could say 100,000 people, one person at a time.
Yeah.
It's also a matter of going on. Hey, I've had the Go Giver out for 11 years now. I haven't stopped doing interviews on it. Okay. And people come to my page, and they come to the page, and some of them may not relate to what they see on the page. Others do. And they want to start engaging, and they want to read the articles and listen to the, whatever. And so you just keep doing all those things you do. You decide on the correct actions, and you do those actions consistently. And, hit the singles and the doubles, and the home runs are going to come. But I think that's really how you do it. And one thing is, I don't think you can concern yourself with everybody who's doing things out there, because you drive yourself crazy if you do. I think if you can live on the creative plane rather than the competitive plane, I think you're better off, which doesn't mean you're living in a dream world and think you don't have competitors. Of course you do. You're aware of them. You understand them. But you don't focus on them. You focus on creating value for as many people as you can. And that's, I think that's the way to approach it.
Bringing it right back to the value, Bob. I love it. You're going to get paid with the value you bring to the table, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I've said that people that listen to my podcast know that I love Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And one of the core philosophies of that book, and it's a quote in the book, is don't chase success, create value, and success will find you. Exactly. And if Viktor or Frankl was holding a microphone, I'd be like, drop it, buddy. That was fantastic, right? And it's kind of what you're saying too, right? Like don't chase the money, don't chase the happiness, don't chase the success, create the value, and all that stuff will find you.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Well said.
So, well, it wasn't me. It was Viktor Frankl, but thank you. So listen, I try to keep these around a half an hour, and you're so it's kind of funny. You're this wealth of sales wisdom And here I am talking to you about how you created your thought leadership career, which I find fascinating. And I kind of did that on purpose because you are well known, your books are well known, and I know a lot of Avanti network family members here are trying to become a thought leader. So I just wanted to share your journey with them.
Oh,
but why don't we end it with some sales wisdom for the tribe, if you don't mind. So a lot of Avanti, members are, they're entrepreneurs, right? They're beginning to middle stage business owners. A lot of them are the chief cook and bottle washer, as you were in the beginning, right? Now you've got a team, which helps out. And maybe they have some small teams too. But what is some advice? You're sitting down with an entrepreneur, maybe they've been doing it for about a year and a half, $3 to 500,000 in sales, but they're freaking frenetically crazy. And they're like, why the hell did I do this type of phase? And, we all been there, right? What are you going to tell them to kind of quote unquote, stop the insanity and focus on what's important again?
Well, I think it is important to get systems together that make it so that you can run your business as opposed to your business running you, which doesn't mean it's always going to work that way as we want it to, but it is important to do your best to learn from the people who've done that. And of course this is where you come into play as well when you offer them guidance like that. So I think that is important. If we see that the business is going a certain direction that causes us ongoing discomfort. And I'm not talking about every so often, because there's always going to be times it's not always fun. It's business. There's times that's not going to be. But if it's a pattern, if it's systemic, then we've got to do something with it. Okay, we've got to determine what it is, and that's often calling you and saying, "Hey, help! I need some assistance with this." And so I think that's important. Know where your strength zone is and where it isn't. And obviously, when you can farm out those things you're not particularly competent at or enjoy doing, you're taking a lot of pressure off yourself to the degree that you can focus on what you do best. That's what you want to be doing, which doesn't mean you abdicate, right? But you certainly delegate, when you can. And that's part of leadership, and that's part of having an organization, whether you have a team of 2 or a team of 10 or what have you. So yeah, I'd say deal in truths. Okay. And if there's a pattern developing that makes it so your business is not fun and rewarding and so forth, do something about it.
Yeah. Beautiful. No, great advice. And in fact, I say that a lot. And I got this from a friend of mine, Darren Hardy, former publisher of Success Magazine, where I don't know if he made the quote up, but he used to say it all the time. And you just kind of said it, where in order to grow, you do have to delegate. And he says, be forewarned, don't abdicate, right? So delegate, don't abdicate, and then set up systems to inspect what you expect, right? So you don't like doing the bookkeeping? Great. Most entrepreneurs don't. So delegate it, but don't give it up. Don't be like, la, 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 I don't know what's going on, right? Set up a system so you still have a monthly check-in, get the dashboard, get the vitals, you still inspect what you expect, and you can move on and go sell something or do whatever you do best, right? So very important lesson, Bob. Really appreciate that. Bob, thank you so much. I know you're a busy man. Truly appreciate your time and your wisdom and everything that you're doing to make the world a better place. Very, very impactful. And I want to tell the Avanti tribe, where to go. Where do we go to buy your book, learn more about you, and how do they get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, probably the best place is just thegogiver.com without the hyphen, thegogiver.com. And there's lots of resources there. You can check out, get the first chapter or 2 of most of the books, and you can read those first and decide if you want to click through.
Great. Excellent. And then they can contact you on there as well.
Yeah. All my information is right there for the world to see.
Excellent, Bob. Well, thanks again. I wish you continued massive success, and I do appreciate the value that you're bringing us today.
And likewise, thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. And thank you, Avanti tribe, Avanti family. Love having you. Appreciate you. Honored that you're listening to the show. We're coming up on 3 years, folks. It's unbelievable. We've had such incredible guests. We're in 72 countries, over 100,000 downloads. And it's been the compound effect of week after week. Great guests and you guys listening. Thank you. Thanks again, Bob. Make sure to check us out on the web, everybody, AvantiEntrepreneur.com. We are there with incredible, all information. We have an event coming up in October, 3-day summit here in Rochester with incredible speakers. We have all these podcasts that we've ever done on there as well, the show notes, the whole works, coaching services, everything that you need to know about Avanti is at AvantiEntrepreneur.com. Make it a great day and stay awesome.